Okay, so let's dive in. Today, I want to share some of my favorite Midrashim on the topic of hope and love. The first one, we'll jump right in, but this is Bereshit Rabbah, Genesis Rabbah, collection of Midrashim. And obviously, as its name suggests, it's drawing from the stories of Bereshit, of the book of Genesis. And often what Midrash does is it puts texts in conversation with each other, right? Dr. Simon, thank you very much. Pizza has arrived. Awesome. Thank you for doing this. No, we appreciate you. Thank you. This is going to be putting different texts and words in conversation with each other. So just keep in mind an eye to that as we dive in. So who would like to get started?
בעברית, I can.
Actually, let's do English, but there are some Hebrew phrases that I'll call on you guys for that are important.
Okay.
I can do English.
Go for it, Lynn. Thanks. Was that you, Jackie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the English. I only have the Hebrew.
Thank you. I'm gonna scroll down. Thanks. Okay, Lynn is gonna get started for us, but Jackie, I'll call on you for the next chance to read in English. So Lynn, let's.
Hear me okay? Because I know last time we.
Yeah, and if you can, speak in a loud voice, but can you guys hear Lynn okay?
Hello, can you hear me? Yep.
Great, okay, let's go.
And Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey.
Okay, so what are we talking about? What story are we referring to?
That's the sacrifice.
Genesis.
Yes, the Akedah, right? The sacrifice, the binding of Isaac.
All right, Rabbi
He's
Simeon
loading the car, right?
Ben Yochai said, love upsets the natural order and hate upsets the natural order.
Okay, pause. Sorry, I'm gonna do this a lot. In Hebrew, what is the phrase? Either Ruth or Helena?
Which phrase?
Love upsets the
ושנאה
natural.
מקלקלת את השורה.
Yep, keep going.
אהבה מקלקלת את השורה.
לא, ושנאה מקלקלת.
יש פה גם זה.
Yep, you guys got it. Between.
אמר רבי שמעון בן
Yes.
יוחאי, אהבה מקלקלת את השורה, ושנאה מקלקלת את השורה.
So let's pause there. What do you make of that? Because that's a pretty poetic and interesting phrase. Hi, Nedra. Thanks for joining us. Let me get your sheet.
So,
What does that mean? What do you think that means?
oh yeah, when you love too much and you don't correct the child or when he does something wrong, it's also not good for the child, for the education of the child. The same as when you hate your child. So both are bad.
Interesting. Okay, so Helena is seeing in it sort of child rearing advice that if you love too much, it could be a problem. If you hate too much, it could be a problem. Maybe it needs to be in the middle. That's interesting. What else are you making of this? Go ahead. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Sheila, go next. Yeah, please.
I don't see it as an excess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's changing the way it is now, so that when you get to the point of loving somebody, it changes your behavior as well as theirs. And whatever that spreads out, because it affects everybody's immediate surroundings. So just the fact that you've gone to a loving relationship from a stranger relationship, the status quo has changed.
Good. So love and hate are disruptive forces, right? They change what would otherwise go on its own merry way. Love and hate disrupt or change things. Good, Sheila, and then we'll go around the room. We'll go around.
Extremes change.
Extreme, yeah.
Extremes change.
Because you were talking
Idiots.
about, I mean, going to the Hebrew, the mekalkel is the spoil.
Right. Mekalkel also to curse, right? Like a
No, mekalel is.
mekalel. Okay. I always okay. Spoil. Good. Mekalkel to spoil. Good. So it's a shura. I like shura being like the straight. Right? The shura, like a line, right? A straight line. So maybe if you look at maybe there's a natural straight line progression of history, right? But love and hate disrupt that straight line. Maybe or maybe in your own personal lives, like things are supposed to go one way, but then love comes along or hate comes along, and that changes the course of the straight line. Yes, we're gonna go around.
I think what it's setting us up for is that moderation and the middle course is always the best.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe it's being set up for moderation, a story of moderation.
Like
Let's
in
go, Ruth.
politics.
Don't understand
Politics.
the connection between Abraham got up early, he settled his cattle, his
Good.
And
Yeah.
why
Why we're talking about it? It's because I'm disrupting the natural order of this session by interrupting. So we're going to keep reading and it'll be made clear. But somebody on Zoom wanted to say something and then we're going to keep reading.
Yeah, I was going to say that the love-hate things, the divorce courts are full of people who started with too much love and ended up hating each other.
Interesting, sort of like volatile relationships. Interesting. And I see that Tybal has changed her screen to Ahava. So thank you for the topical. And go ahead, you have your hand up too, Tybal.
Oh, I was just gonna say my comment is visual, but you already picked it up.
Well, thank you. That's great. If anybody wants to put a big Sina statue, no, it doesn't exist, but yeah, just kidding, just kidding. Okay, let's keep going.
I was
I
just
know.
gonna say,
Yeah, oh,
I'm not
please,
sure,
Chad.
I'm not sure I buy the principle that love and hate is not part of the natural.
Nice, okay. So good. Chad is rejecting the premise, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're not disruptive forces to the natural order. Maybe they're part of it.
Isn't love the natural order?
Maybe love is the natural order, but that's interesting. I don't know that the Midrash is necessarily saying that it is. I think at least this seems to be saying that they are separate and removed from the natural order and are disruptive forces, or not. You'll tell me once we keep reading.
The natural order may change also.
Yeah, that's true. So let's keep reading. Remind me who is reading and keep going.
Love upsets the natural order, and Abraham rose early in the morning, etc.
Mhm.
Surely he had plenty of servants, but the reason was that love upset the natural order. Hate.
So let's pause.
Okay.
What it's saying there is that why did Abraham, who was wealthy at this point, he amassed so much, why did he wake up early to pack the car, load the car for the Akedah, for the sacrifice? He had servants. We know he had Eliezer and other Narim, right? He had lads who accompanied him. Why did he wake up early to do his own manual labor is the question that the rabbis are stuck on. He could have had other people do the physical labor back then. He had servants. But out of love for God, Vayashkem, he woke up early. Vayashkem, he woke up early in the morning, right? And the rabbi sees on that word, and there's shachari, right? But there's also an alacrity, a piousness of he didn't sleep in. He woke up. He got up early for minyan, right? He got up early. He got up early to go carry out the will of God. That comes from love. Love disrupts the natural order, which in the mind of the rabbis here is a status hierarchy of the natural order is if you have servants, you use servants. There's a natural order, but I would reject that premise, right? That having servants is part of the natural order. But in the context we're living in, that is the question. Yeah, Sheila.
What actually is that Avram is involved. It's not just love. Or a part of love is being involved in doing something and not just saying, I love him.
Right. So I think what Sheila is saying is
For buying a box of candy. That's not the same. When you
Right.
get up, you're really sacrificing something of yourself.
oh, nice sacrifice.
Yeah, I mean,
in
you're
there.
getting up earlier.
Get it right. But maybe there's also like love of his son Isaac here too. Like he is getting involved on a personal, he's not gonna outsource this project to anybody else. This is personal. So maybe there's love of Isaac. I think here it's referring to Abraham's love of God, but
Also
maybe
that
there's
he
love of
was
Isaac.
scared that his wife would find him.
Right, while Sarah's still sleeping. Although how you chop wood and Sarah stays sleeping, I don't really know. Let's keep going. Lynn, you want to keep reading?
Sure. Hate upsets the natural order, and Bilam rose up in the morning and saddled his donkey.
Okay, so midrashically, what are we comparing? What are we putting in conversation with each other here? What
Good and
aspect?
bad.
Well, that's conceptually, but words or situations. What's the connection between the first verse and this verse?
Saddle the donkey.
Saddle the donkey, right? And you could find it in Hebrew too. So wherever you see chamor, right? But anyway, it's the same language. It's the same words being used. Okay.
Aton.
Oh, aton. Yeah. Okay.
What is it?
Well, that's for donkey, but
Oh.
where is saddled?
Female. Female. You're talking about Bilam.
Yeah, so now we're talking about Bilam. Who can tell me what this context is? What's the story of Bilam?
Going to curse God,
He's going to what?
curse God.
Right, so Balak was the king who hired Bilam, who is a prophet, to curse the Israelites. The Israelites give them a curse because Balak was afraid that they would overpower them in war. right? Midian. So he hires this basically prophet for hire, who's a non-Jewish prophet, by the way, right? Bilam is not an Israelite, not Jewish, but has a prophet relationship with God. And so his reputation precedes him. He's being hired, and he saddles his donkey to go and curse the people. So that's an example of sina, of hate, right? But it's the same situation. Lynn, keep going.
Sure. Surely he had plenty of servants. Hate, however, upsets the natural order.
Right. Why would he get up early and do it himself? Hate. Hate is a motivator that breaks the natural order, which would have been that Bilam has his servants saddle his donkey. Just like with Abraham, love was the motivator that disrupted the natural order, which would have had his servants saddle his donkey. Okay.
Love upsets the natural order, and Joseph made ready his chariot, etc. Yet surely Joseph had plenty of servants, but love upsets the natural order.
Good. Pause. So this is a little bit more obscure. Joseph saddling or making ready his chariot. Anybody know what that's referring to?
Yeah, to meet his father.
Yes, good. To meet his father, who's been estranged, right? Yaakov. Joseph was sold into slavery. Years go by. He becomes second to Pharaoh in Egypt. Rises to prominence and wealth, but he hasn't seen Jacob. Jacob thinks he's dead, right? His sons bring him the coat soaked in blood because they had sold him off to Egypt, but they tell Jacob that he was killed by a wild animal. So this is the reunion. This is the long-awaited father-son reunion. Joseph, who's second to Pharaoh, could have had servants make ready his chariot, but out of love for his father, he's doing it himself, right? Disrupting the natural order. Keep going.
Hate upsets the natural order, and he made ready his chariot.
Good. Now this one, it doesn't even give, yet surely he had servants too. This one you wouldn't know because it's not saying who it is, but it's from Exodus 14:6. Is there any wild guesses as to who they're going to be comparing Joseph to? Pharaoh. Good. Pharaoh made ready his chariot. In this case, what's the context?
He wanted to run
chase.
after
To chase after the Israelites. So an obvious example of Sina, and like Bilam, it's again like hatred towards the Israelites,
Why
right?
don't they mention his name?
I don't know. I think it's just the translation because in the actual phrase, it doesn't say Pharaoh is all. It just is like, and he made ready his chariot. Otherwise, it would have had Pharaoh in there. I don't think it's an act of omission. It's just the verse. Okay, good. Let's have a new reader. From Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said. I think it was Jackie. Did you want to read for us?
Where am I?
We are Shimon Bar Yochai said. Let's see if I can.
The line under 14:6.
The
Shimon ben Yochai said, let saddling counteract saddling. Let the saddling done by our father Abraham in order to go and fulfill the will of the one at whose word the world came. Having difficulty.
Okay.
In order to go and fulfill the will of the one at whose word the world came into existence, counteract the saddling done by Bilam in order to go and curse Israel. Let preparing counteract preparing. Let Joseph's preparing of his chariot to meet his father counteract Pharaoh's preparing to go and pursue Israel.
Great pause. And in Hebrew, it's the tavo chavasha, v'ta'amod al chavasha. That's let saddling counteract saddling. But I wanted you to see the phrase in Hebrew, ta'amod al, like to stand on or to stand against, or, let one be considered in relation to the other. Let it stand in front of the other. Right. So somebody was saying before about I think it was Jerry was saying, maybe this is about moderation. I don't know if it's exactly about finding a middle ground between hate and love and moderation, but there's certainly balance all over this Midrash, right? Of let the acts of hatred that have been done historically be counteracted by the acts of love, right? So one has, according to this Midrash, a sort of wiping away property, that the story of human history is a story of good and evil, right? Every story you could tell of human history could probably be boiled down to good and evil, a story of good and evil, right? And here this Midrash is saying, let love counteract hate historically. Let one come to stand against the other. Ooh, are we okay? Everyone all right?
Yeah, she was tripping on a chair.
Okay. Let's keep reading.
Okay.
But first, let's bring it to the room actually first. Any reactions to that kind of framework of looking at history and kind of pulling examples of love and saying, let that counteract a historical act of hate? Is that inspiring? Does that hit you well, incorrectly, wrong? Kind of parve about it? Yeah, Jerry?
I don't like it.
Okay, say more.
Because why does there have to be hate in the first place? In other words, the fact that there is hate is in itself a bad situation. Rather than there not be hate, than have to balance it with love.
Sure, of course. So maybe this is not enough, right? We should be talking about how we should expunge hate entirely, but I think this is more of a reality-based midrash. Like it's sort of observational, less prescriptive, saying, we live in a world of hate and love. The reality is there is hate all throughout, every day there's hate, but let love counteract it is an interesting.
Like kill him with kindness kind of thing?
Maybe kill him with kindness. Maybe, yeah, I like that.
But it's interesting that this was said so long ago.
Mhm.
Today.
There's nothing new under the sun.
Today, this is something a rabbi would say, you pull things apart, you get desperate for sermon material. You pull this apart. But for them to have thought about the contrast between love and hate when this was written, which I don't know when it was, is interesting.
Yeah.
It's they have really nothing else to do with
under
it.
the sun.
Go ahead.
What comes to my mind, and it's not an even balance, is Hitler and righteous Gentiles.
Right. That you have one agent of evil, but even in our darkest stories, our darkest history, you have instances of love that shine through, right? The righteous Gentiles, non-Jews who housed and protected and hid Jews during the Holocaust, that even in our darkest moments, when you look at humanity, the reason this speaks to me is because I'm thinking about humanity and thinking, are we more good or are we more evil? Or what, when at the end of the day, what is humanity? And I love that this is saying, look, we have to be honest with ourselves. Like, we have done some terrible, terrible things, but we also can't let that dark pall define who we are. Like that is a part of our history, but there is always love counteracting hate. You can find me any example of hate and human disappointment and who are we? And we can find an example of human love and inspiration and goodness that stands in the face of that darkness. That I think is ultimately hopeful.
I'm also thinking of the
Yes.
story of Dinah.
Go ahead. The sexual assault of Dinah.
Oh,
Yeah. And where's the positive? Because obviously
Well,
that's the example of, yeah.
Obviously, the one who wanted her so badly, he had fallen in love with her.
Right. So there's love and hate in that story. Absolutely. But I think if you were wanting to make a midrash, if you were wanting to, Jackie, add your own midrash to that, I would find, a phrase in the Hebrew there of, and he arose and he took Dinah or something like that, and then find another instance somewhere else in the Torah of that phrase of he took. That would be a positive, an act of love. Although you're saying that there's love and violence in that one act. So it's an interesting example. Yeah, Jerry.
But in reality, the good does not balance the bad. If you think of the Shoah and how
Right.
bad that was, and you give these little examples.
Right.
Okay. If you talk about the expulsion from Spain, you talk about the rum in York that destroys it. What was the counterbalance
Right.
that comes anywhere close
Right.
to the bad?
So good. So this model we're having trouble with, because does good ever totally expunge the bad or balance out the bad? The bad at the end of the day could be so bad that there is nothing that could come to make that better. Right? So I think that's what you're saying there.
But it modifies it.
Sure, but it modifies it. I would say it complicates this story.
It makes it livable.
Makes it livable, sure. But I think it adds layer to this story to say you could look at this, like if we're in court, if human beings are in a heavenly court and the question is, are we more good or more bad? And the prosecutor submits to you, the Shoah, human beings are bad. But then the defense comes to say, well, I submit to you righteous Gentiles, or I submit to you a totally different instance that has nothing to do with the Shoah, but a radical act of humanitarian aid and love, and say, well, what about this though? So it's not that this cancels this out, but it stands. It's a rebuttal.
You don't have to go back that far in history. You can go to the Putin and Ukraine.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm bringing this because it's very relevant to me. It's when you watch the news and you say to yourself, are we more good or are we more bad? Or when you look, and so I need, in those moments, I need hope and I need love. And that's where this Midrash speaks to me. So let's have another reader to finish up this Midrash. Let's do someone in the room, and we are in the last sentence and going on to the next page. Right? Let the saddling of Abraham counteract the saddling of Pharaoh, and let the making ready of his chariot of Yosef counteract the making ready of Pharaoh's chariot. Yeah.
So to read,
Right. First one was Bilam and Abraham, and then we have Yosef and Pharaoh. Okay, good. So Rabbi, last word on this page, and then turn the page. Rabbi Ishmael taught. I think it's good. Thank you.
Rabbi Ishmael taught, let the sword of the hand counteract the sword of the hand. Let the sword taken in the hand of our father Abraham, as it says, and Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. Come and counteract the sword grasped by Pharaoh's hand when he said, I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them.
Good. So say all the same, right? We're making the same midrashic moves. This time it's let the sword that Abraham used for the Akedah, which you might say, hey, how is that an example of love? But the rabbis are certainly seeing it as an example of love because he's willing to sacrifice his most prized possession, not possession, but his son for God. So that of course is the rabbis are understanding as an act of total faith and love, versus Pharaoh's drawing the sword to slay the Israelites, to enslave them. Okay, keep going.
And two of his young men with him, and Yitzhak, his son. Oh, that's referring to before.
Yeah, Abraham getting ready for that.
Abahu.
Whatever. That's okay.
Said, two people behaved with derech eretz decency, Abraham and Saul. Abraham, as it says, and took two of his young men with him. Saul, as it says, and Saul went, he and two men with him.
Yeah, so here they're just pointing out that, again, linking these two stories midrashically with this whole notion of taking two men. In the Saul example, Saul took two men to go see, Samuel was Saul, King Saul, the first king of Judah, and right, he wants to see Samuel, the prophet who anointed him, but Samuel is dead. So he goes to basically commune with the dead. It's a very interesting passage, but he takes his.
I read this at 3 a.m. last night. Don't ask me why.
Did you really?
Yes.
Whoa.
It was a happy night. Let me tell you. I'll tell you about the book, but.
But the rabbis are understanding that to be an act of decency, having this accompaniment. Okay, keep going.
Where am I? And he cleaved the wood for the burnt offering. Rabbi Hia ben Rabbi Yosef said in the name of Rabbi. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it was also repeated in the name of Rabbi Benaiah as a reward for the two cleavings with which our father Abraham cleaved the wood of the burnt offering. He earned that God should divide the sea before his descendants, as it says, and the waters were divided.
Good, and our Hebrew experts, I know we have many in the room, but what is the Midrashic move? What's the word that's linking cleaving wood to cleaving the sea?
Levakea,
Yeah, levakea, to sort of divide in half.
split, yeah.
Good. So just like Abraham split wood for the sacrifice, and I think the second instance they're referring to might be the Brit Bein Abtarim, the covenant between the parts. I just my guess. I'm not sure what the second Abraham cleaving wood example is, but either way, saying that these examples of cleaving, because Abraham cleaved the wood, God does what?
Leaves the sea.
Water on the sea.
Right. So keep going. Let's finish the Midrash and discuss this.
It says, and the waters were divided. Said Rabbi Levi, enough of this. In truth, Abraham acted according to his powers, and the Holy One of blessing according to his powers.
And I like to get rid of gendered language for God. So I meant to
There.
put God's powers, but yeah, that's my fault. I put it there. Good.
All right. Well, who rose up? And they rose up and went to.
No, you could say he. In this case, it's not referring to God.
Oh, that capital H, God.
That's Abraham.
He rose up and went to the place. Abraham was rewarded for rising up and for going.
So I think they go on this long midrashic excursus, right? Of let this counteract this, let that counteract that. Abraham split the wood, so God split the sea. And then Rabbi later says, enough, it's had enough, which is, I think, a funny thing. I think you're getting a sense of what the Beit Midrash atmosphere was like, right? Enough of this. It's as simple as God acted according to God's powers. Abraham acted according to Abraham's powers. He rose up and went to the place, is talking about Mount Moriah for the sacrifice. But interestingly, it says he went El HaMakom, to the place, and Hamakom is a name for God. So maybe it's actually saying, and he carried out God's will. And so Abraham was rewarded for rising up and going. So there's sort of a rejection of this whole playful
Yeah,
midrash.
well, last line, I mean, so Abraham was rewarded.
Right. So here's the question, right? Let's talk about this, because what I love about this last piece is the notion that what we do down here impacts what happens, let's say, up here. Wherever it is that you view God, if you view God, right? It doesn't need to be up here, but what we do down on earth having some cosmic implications, right? Because Abraham split the wood, so God rewards by splitting the sea, is an interesting notion. And it's to say that what we do actually impacts what God does. Especially in the context of a conversation about love and hate and human history.
What comes to my mind when I hear the word cleave is this Solomon story where he says to I'm gonna split the baby in two and divide it between the two women.
Yeah.
But is that Midrash or is that Tanakh?
That's Torah. That's Tanakh. Yeah. I wonder if, it's Nevi'im, but I wonder if,
I don't know if they use the word cleave in that exemplar.
yeah, I wonder. Okay. More thoughts on this? Yeah, please.
Can you change the pages on the screen?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yep. Okay. Yep. My mistake. Good.
Explain the last line, though. I mean, so Abraham was rewarded for rising up and for going.
Right. So I think if I'm understanding this correctly.
Vayashkem is the Schar Kima.
Yeah.
Vayashkem.
Good.
Vayashkem, the first born, he got up early. He got up.
Yeah.
Schar Kima, Uschar Halicha, and he walked. So he was rewarded by God, probably sparing his son. I don't know if that's the.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It suddenly.
He got up early in the morning to do all that.
Because of how he did it, he got a reward.
Right. I think it's I think it's rejecting the midrashic link between splitting and splitting. Oh, because Abraham split the wood, and saying, no, it's not that. It's just that he woke up early and went to carry out God's will. And so God rewarded him.
Yeah, that's perfectly makes sense to me. It's just when they start with comparing it to.
Right.
Yam Suf and.
Right, so
that's
you
where,
seem like you align with Rabbi Levi, who's like, this is too
Yeah.
much. Yeah, but so you could reject, you don't have to buy into it, but I find it fascinating that it sort of takes a bird's eye view of all of human history, right? And in the Torah, we're referring to like our Jewish, Torah history of saying all the stories are at play here. One thing can happen at this time, and another thing can happen at a totally different time that stands to counteract that.
So this is what I was reading at 3 a.m.
Yeah, what were you reading?
It was Rabbi Luria of the 15th century and.
Kabbalah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And talking about the spirit sparks. I'm sorry, this is what I do at 3 a.m. And.
All right, don't
and
call
so-
me.
So one instance of either something evil that needed to be righted can transcend to another spark in the universe, right?
Interesting, cool.
And it can be corrected.
Wow. Yeah, it's an interesting way to look at life, right? This sort of transgenerational conversation, right? That's something that happened so long ago, right? But as Jews, we're all about that. We're all about, never forgetting and
ושני בנים תהיינה.
yes, right?
What?
So,
Do you want to translate?
Yeah. Can you translate that?
so I look at it like if this generation has so many health problems, it's because that our forefathers in the Holocaust didn't eat and were, so if you eat something, avot achlu boser means when you eat a fruit that is not ripe, your teeth are becoming
Rotten?
rotten.
Decayed?
So,
I don't know. So
Interesting.
if you eat rotten food, you get bad teeth?
No,
well,
Boser,
but
Boser
it's
is
like
not
a
right.
mashal.
Right, it's an
Not
allegory.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So when you bite into a non-ripe fruit, you feel your teeth, you feel it on your teeth, on your tongue. It's a bad sensation in your mouth.
So you're talking about reverberations of actions.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because in Kitei say in this week's parsha, we'll get to children not being put to death on account of the sins of their parents, right? That you can't try a child for the sins of their parents, right? But this interesting thing, so like, while that's the case, that's consistent here. We're not necessarily to be punished because of the behavior of those who came before us, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we are unaffected by what came before us and that we might not have a responsibility to correct what came before us, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this, that there is this kind of like, you can look at all the terrible things that have happened and be defeated by that. Or you can say, okay, maybe there is a shura, like what the ideal course of human history might be. And maybe we've seen a lot about how hate, disrupts that, the arc of the right was Martin Luther King, right? The arc of the world bends towards justice, right? It's a long way in coming, but ultimately it bends towards justice, right? That's how I kind of see it. Maybe human history is this zigzag line that goes, here it is straight, but then hate pushes it that way, but then love pushes it that way, but then, and you have to hope that at the end of the day, wherever it's bending, it's ultimately going to bend towards justice, towards the shura, towards the straight and narrow. Yes, a thought? Okay, so good. And I'll just say, here's what's something interesting. At the very beginning, the person who introduces this whole Ahava mekalkelet et Ashura v'sina mekalkelet et Ashura is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And there's a lot to say about him, especially, that's who you're going to be reading about late at night. It's Luria next is going to be Shimon Bar Yochai, who's attributed.
He was the student.
Yes, so he's attributed with being the author of the Zohar, the big Kabbalistic text.
Yeah.
And he also is the student of Rabbi Akiva. And what do we know about what happened to Rabbi Akiva? What end did he meet?
Not pleasant.
Not pleasant, right? Flayed alive by the Romans. So you have his student who saw this happen, who then fled and hid in a cave. I mentioned this story last time. I think I said it was Ben Zakkai, and I misspoke. I meant it was Bar Yochai. But he and his son Rabbi Elazar, hide in a cave. They bury themselves. They've had it, right? Well, they're hiding from the Romans, but they bury themselves up to their necks and study Torah all day and subsist off carob tree, right? And I think 13 years later, they go out and they shoot laser beams out at the world, because that's sort of the Sinah part of it all, where you've fed up with, you think you've lost hope in humanity. But God says, no, go back in. Have you come out to destroy my world? And they go back the more time. And when they come out, they see somebody getting ready for Shabbos, and they're comforted. That's ahava, right? If you only ever get caught up in just the one, you miss the other half of the story, right? And it's also a call to action that we have. It's in our power to counteract the acts of hate that have come before us with love, to fight hate with love. If I kill him with kindness, I say to fight hate with love. Okay, let's go on to this next one. This is much simpler. We could read right through it. One of my favorites. Now, so that was sort of love and hope. And this is going to be another example of love and hope. Who would like to read who hasn't read yet? Maybe somebody from Zoom?
Eric's in Spain. Maybe he'll read in Spanish.
Eric, you want to read in Spanish from Spain? It's amazing you're joining us from Spain. Thank you for being here. We miss you over here. Anybody want to read in English? This is from Sota. This is from Gemara, from Talmud.
All right, the Gemara asks, what is the
Sheila, thanks.
Eric's connecting to audio, it says.
All right, let him go speak.
That's okay, Sheila, go ahead.
The Gemara asks, what is the relevance? The verse states, and there went a man of the house of Levi and took for a wife a daughter of Levi.
Who are we talking about? There was a certain man from Levi who took a woman from the tribe of Levi. Do we know who we're referring to? It's Moses's parents, Amram taking Yocheved. Yep. Okay, so but they're asking a question about this verse. Keep going, Sheila.
The Gemara asks, where did they go? Where did he go?
Right, because it says Vayelech, Ish Mibeit Levi. Where, and it's saying where? What is it? Why Vayelech? Why? Where did he? What does it mean? And he went. What is and he went?
He listens to his daughter.
Yeah. Keep going, Sheila.
Okay, Rabbi Yehuda ben Zvina says he went according to the advice of his daughter Miriam, as the Gemara will proceed to explain.
Good. So it doesn't mean he literally went and took Yocheved, his wife?
No.
If he took the wife, this is.
It's not saying he literally went.
The Miriam is his daughter.
Yes, Miriam is the daughter. We're going to get to Miriam. But I just want to, my point in here that
they were sort of divorced.
Yes, good. So you're jumping the gun. Yes, Ruth knows where we're going. But the point is, the Midrash here is that it's saying, don't read it by Elech, he went, like walked and met Yocheved. Read it as he went with the advice of his daughter Miriam.
Yeah.
And now we're going to explain how we get there. So keep reading.
But wait a minute,
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense, the story.
Oh, go ahead. What's the?
It's to the world.
You're ruining them. You're spoiling. Mekal, tell it. You're spoiling the story.
All right, let's finish reading.
Something there.
Yep.
Miriam is the daughter
Yes.
of
Correct. Who is older than Moses, right? So she's the older sister.
Okay.
Keep going.
The Gemara says, to where did he go? Rabbi Yehuda ben Zavina says, he went according to the advice of his daughter Miriam, as the Gemara will proceed to explain. A sage teaches, Amram, the father of Moses, was a great man of his generation. Once he saw that the wicked Pharaoh said, every son that is born to you, you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive, he said, we are laboring for nothing by bringing children into the world to be killed.
Okay, pause. So
Yeah,
remember Shimon Bar Yochai in the cave and this sort of is harping on the Sinah of it all. Amram is in that mindset. Okay.
We are laboring to nothing to bring children into the world to be killed. Therefore, he arose and divorced his wife. All others who saw this followed his example and rose and divorced their wives.
Right, because he was
His daughter Miriam said to him, Father, your decree is more harsh for the Jewish people than that of Pharaoh, for Pharaoh decreed only with regard to the males, but you decreed both on the males and on the females.
Okay, pause. We're all together with this? Yeah?
Yeah.
right? Because if we stop having children and everybody follows your example, so now none of the Israelites and you have to feel badly for them. Their life is slavery. It's a genuine question. Is it moral? Is it right to bring children into this world where we are enslaved? Their life is going to be brutal and terrible. And maybe it's best if we stop bringing children into this situation.
Well.
You can
wanna
understand
say
it.
that
You don't have to agree with it. Yet people do say that today. Again, I'm bringing stuff that I'm bringing texts that I find relevant, that I think speak to today. So yes, I think people do, well, let's go there, right? People say with climate change, right? Or with
Mhm.
pick but is it actually responsible to bring children into a world who are going to have to reckon with the mess that previous generations have left, right? We're not put to death for the sins of our parents, but are we? Right? Is a question. So Amram says, no, that the moral thing to do, divorce your spouse, don't have kids. Okay, keep reading.
Additionally, Pharaoh decreed to kill only in this world, but you decreed in this world and in the world to come, as those not born will not enter the world to come.
Good. So Miriam is standing up to this. And by the way, it's like she is the youth who will inherit the world, and she is advocating on behalf of the youth and saying, you are worse than Pharaoh here, which takes a lot of courage to stand up to your father and say something, right? Because Pharaoh said only the males, but if you stop having kids, if everybody stop having kids, that's males and females. And what's more is Pharaoh is only punishing us in this world, but if you don't bring life into the world at all, then you're depriving them of a worldly life and a world to come, right? Wherever the soul goes after death, you're depriving them of that too, because you're not creating the soul. Okay, keep going.
Miriam continued. Additionally, concerning Pharaoh the wicked, it is uncertain whether his decree will be fulfilled, and it is uncertain if his decree will not be fulfilled. You are a righteous person, meaning your father, and as such your decree will certainly be fulfilled, as it is stated with regard to the righteous. You shall also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto you. Amram accepted his daughter's words and arose and remarried his wife, and all others who saw this followed his example and arose and brought back their wives.
Good.
And so Moses was born.
And so Moses was born, and with Moses comes redemption, right?
Yeah, but-
Disrupting the shura at that time, which was slavery. Right, go ahead.
It's interesting, what he does not deal with is the question, okay, if you only have females, who are the females going to marry? Or are they going to just die out on their own?
Right, but I think
Which is a question that is not discussed anywhere, not that I know of.
Shakers of North.
Yeah,
Union
the Shakers, exactly.
interesting. Okay,
You know, you're in Shaker land.
Even if they die.
right.
You're talking about the decree?
Yes.
There's another explanation because
Okay, wait, sorry, I saw Tybel's hand, then we'll go here. Yeah, then Jerry, Tybel?
And just from the genealogist perspective, the other thing that happens after the three children of this marriage, aunt nephew marriage is no longer just uncle niece.
What?
Interesting, say more, elaborate.
Well,
what'd you say,
Moshe's
Anna?
parents are aunt and nephew.
Right,
And later we learned that that's a prohibited marriage, but uncle niece is allowed. And the fun fact is, in the colonies, Rhode Island early had an exemption for Jews where uncle niece marriages were legal.
wow. That's really
Fun
interesting.
fact.
Also making me, that's very, it also making me think of Purim, right? If there's a question about like, anyway, but yeah, so good. That's really interesting. Yeah, yeah. So very interesting, very interesting. But okay, so what do we make of this? Did this strike you? Yes. Oh, sorry, Jerry, and then Judy. Go ahead.
no, I mean, another potential goal of saving only the females is to do away with the Jewish people. In other words, with time, these women would marry Egyptian men, no doubt, and there would no longer be a Jewish people. And so that could be another goal of this decree, because that certainly happened other times in our history where there's been an attempt to destroying the normal timeline of history
Sure, interesting, yeah.
in order to destroy the Jewish people.
Right. I think if you're getting to Pharaoh's decree, the rationale behind the males and not the females, I think the original concern, remember, was that the Israelites are getting so mighty, so numerous that they could join forces with a neighboring army. If a neighboring army comes to invade Egypt, the slaves, the Israelites would join forces and then they'd have trouble. So I think it's more of a military strategy saying, kill the boys.
But you get two things with one stone, you know?
Yes. Sheila, yes.
There's a question, it's somewhat related, somewhat not, but you're talking about Moses only has 2 kids.
Yes.
Joseph only has 2 kids. These people, except for his father.
Mhm.
Now, if the wife was barren, okay, so you finally have 1 kid out of it. But in almost every case, unless they had several wives, which in effect is how Jacob had so many kids,
Mhm.
they never multiplied very much.
Interesting. Well, Moses was busy. So we could give him a write-up. But yes, no, good point. It's interesting, right? But
I mean, just thinking about it, we're talking about multiplying and yet nobody
you're
has
saying they
many
didn't do
kids.
enough. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a question. That's a demographic question, right? Continuity question. Go ahead.
But if, going back to the saving the females, if they're having children with somebody that is not like the Egyptians,
Mhm.
the females are, the gene is carried through the wife, right?
Right, but back
The mother.
then it was through the father.
When did that switch?
The rabbis switch it up, but originally it was right because if you think of like Kohanim, right, it's like it goes through the father. Yeah, so biblically, it's actually more a patriarchal system.
So I am a Levite.
Okay, so I love this. And by the way, there is another midrash that remember when we're building the tabernacle, mirrors are used, I think maybe for the basin or something. But in the construction of our portable sanctuary in the desert, mirrors are used. And the question the rabbis have is they make a link from rabbis are always linking, that's midrash, right? They say that the mirrors. Why mirror? Like, what is this for? It's the mirrors that the women used to beautify themselves and seduce their hopeless husbands. Who the Israelite slaves were not, they were tired, they were disparaged, they were hopeless, and their wives would seduce them by beautifying themselves, meeting them in the fields. So this idea again, and it's interesting, it's through Miriam, right? And throughout Exodus, right? There are so many women heroes. The whole Moses story, right? There's so many, Shifra and Puah. Bat Paro, Miriam, right? There's so many that had not, but for them, but for the grace of them go us. But so it's interesting, right? That then needs to be a part of the Mishkan, right? The mirror, this hopeful image of continuing on in the face of despair. But I love this midrash of Miriam standing up to Amram and saying, this decree is worse than Pharaoh's. You can't give up hope. If you've given up hope, you've lost everything. And that's, and then they have Moses, and Moses breaks up that system that they were worried about in the first place, right? They thought the slavery thing was going to be forever. So they were going to lose hope. But if you hold on to hope, maybe there's, maybe things can change. Maybe things can get better, but they won't if you lose hope. Right? In this battle between good and evil, between love and hate, hope is a key player. I want to end with one more. This is not a midrash. This is a graphic novel by Neil Gaiman, and it also became a television show recently, The Sandman. But the context for this is Morpheus is a character who they all have like mystical powers. It's very like supernatural. And he has lost his helmet, which is the source of his power. And the devil has it. The devil is Coronzone here. And so the devil challenges Morpheus to a battle of wits. If he can best the devil in this battle of wits, he gets his helmet back, which is the source of his power. So the following is the conversation between him and the devil in this battle of wits. So let's cast it. Can we cast it and perform it? Who wants to be the devil? Does anybody?
I'll be the devil.
Sheila says Sheila will be the devil.
Someone else wants it.
Who wants to be the protagonist? Who wants to be Morpheus, our hero? Okay, great. Lynn's going to be Morpheus, our hero. So, okay, go ahead. When you're ready, Sheila, you start us off.
I am a dire wolf, prey stalking, lethal prowler.
I am a hunter, horse mounted, wolf stabbing.
I am a horsefly, horse stinging, hunter throwing.
I am a spider, fly, consuming, 8-legged.
I am a snake, spider devouring, poison tooth.
I am an ox, snake, crushing, heavy-footed.
I am anthrax, butcher bacterium, warm loving life, warm life destroying.
I am a world, space, floating, life, nurturing.
I am a nova, all exploding, planet cremating.
I am the universe, all things encompassing, all life embracing.
I am anti-life, the beast of judgment. I am the dark at the end of everything, the end of universes, gods, worlds, of everything. And what will you be then, Dream Lord?
I am hope.
Nice. Interesting, right? It always gives me chills to read. That's where I wanted to end today's learning. But we have a few minutes. I want to hear more reactions from you. Tybal, I see your hand.
I put in the chat, you may not see the chat, you just amused me. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I do know what his surname originally was, which was Hyman.
Hey.
But
so it is a
before
Midrash. We can call it a Midrash then.
It's not a Midrash, but it's just very interesting through the lens of knowing that he did not, as an adult, he neither embraced his family's Judaism nor his parents' Scientology.
Wow. The author of this, The Sandman, Neil Gaiman. So he's got Jewish roots, but it seems he himself wasn't religious.
100% biologically, all 4 grandparents, but then his parent, I forget what generation came to England, but
wow,
he was born in England, but his parents embraced Scientology, which if you weren't in the United States in those years was not that easy to do. You had to work to find it.
Wow, that's really interesting. Thank you for that context.
Well, this is sort of like High God Young, right?
Yes.
It just, one just keeps besting the next one until finally the devil says, I've destroyed everything. There's, I win. And he goes, no, I am hope.
Yes, I like that.
And so I think Chad is saying maybe he picked it up at a Pesach Seder.
Correct.
And I think, and Pesach brings us back to Moses and Miriam and Amram and Yocheved. And we had 2 different deliveries of the last line, and both are interesting. Lynn had a sort of an excited, powerful delivery of it, right? I am hope. What then? I gotcha. And Chad had a quieter delivery, right? It was sort of like I am hope. And I think there are times when hope is sort of a louder hope and times when it's quieter.
I'm the frustrated actress.
Yes, Jerry.
Well, it becomes a theme because think of it, in Matrix, there is the one.
Right, Morpheus again, yeah.
No.
He's not the one. He's not the one.
Not the one.
Keanu Reeves is the one.
And in Dune, there is the one. And so, in a way, Moses is the one.
The one, right.
And so everything goes back. In each of those cases, things are hopeless. But there was potentially a savior.
Right.
And he was the one.
Right. And I think that ultimately, we all have to see ourselves as having the potential to be the one. Not from a place of ego or narcissism, but from a place of the world needs that. Or to look back at your life and reflect on the ways in which you've been the one in your own way, right? That ultimately.
Sleep.
Sorry?
Morpheus is the god of sleep in Greek mythology.
Right. No, they're all, thank you. I should have said in the context, it's very Greek influenced. It's all the Greek gods and goddesses. And so he's Dream Lord. He's the god of sleep. That is he controls dreams. That's the protagonist, Morpheus. That's his power.
Morphine.
Morphine.
Yeah.
There you go. So,
Produces daydreams.
yeah, there you go. So that's where I want to leave us. I want us to feel that, there, whatever this shura is, whatever is the direction and course of human history, hate has the power to disrupt where we should be going, but love has an equal, if not greater power. Hope certainly has the greatest power. And that is something that,
That's you as the rabbi.
that we can never lose.
Okay.
So thank you for being here, for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'll see you next week.
Who are we supposed to give money to for food if it said give money, donations accepted?
You know what? Put it in a cup. I told
It's a very nice question.
I'm sorry, what?
Make a donation to Rabbi's fund. No, they wanted to pay for the food.
Food.
To the food fund. This is being sponsored by my fund, the First Ski Fund, and I think Nelson and Betsy. We're the ones who sort of pay for it. I mean, but they, here, put the money in here.
That's the plastic pushki.
The pushki. So thanks everybody on Zoom as well, in person. Thank you for being here and for sharing your insights. No, I was teasing Tybal because Tybal said that she didn't go to the other tech study that she was going to go to because it was on that topic and she's bored of that topic.
Oh, well, nothing. My brain's turning.
Bored by it.
Troubled by it. I'm interested in Chavez.
You who are interested in, we were talking about, you're responsible for your children, your grandchildren and great grandchildren, whatnot, third and fourth generation. The whole idea of slavery reparations, somebody wrote in the Wall Street Journal an article about slavery reparations.
Yes.
And there's been some feedback in the letters to the editor.
Yep.
I don't remember when the article originally appeared, but it's within the last 10 days.
Yep.
So if anybody's interested, you might want to
Pick up the journal.
pick up, yeah.
We get it
And read it.
delivered and then.
Oh, you've been getting it.
Oh, we-
Finally.
Oh, well, they.
Oh, please. I already did. Indian service.
I didn't eat anything. I need to get lactated before I
At the
can.
right place.
Forgot to bring it.
They.
Thanks for asking.
Anecdotes for you. I have a friend in Florida who has no children. On purpose,
Yeah.
her mother was a Mengele.
Wow.
And she doesn't know, well, nobody knows what happened, how she was experimented on. And she doesn't want to, she did not want to risk having children with that.
So interesting. That's a very specific situation, right? Very specific challenge to navigate. And it's an interesting question, like, do we have a Jewish obligation? Obviously, like Pru or Vu is one of the, right, and this idea of and for Jewish continuity, right, you have to have kids, and especially in light of the Shoah, the Holocaust, it's like we can't give Hitler a posthumous victory. We need to keep going and keep going. And yet you are seeing Jews and people of all, of the younger generation questioning whether or not it's actually right to bring children into the world.
The other side of that coin is, I think this community should be having children because this is where the training, where the assets go, where the development is. I grew up across the street from Robert Bruce Goldberg. Dr. Goldberg is a month and 4 days older than me. Got involved in gene splicing in plants, genetically modified food.
Yeah.
They modified a food product by, and without going into the science, it was in order to make the cross, they had to modify the genes. The plant they were working on is canola. He has fed millions
Wow.
of Africans with canola oil
Wow.
by increasing the production of canola oil in the canola plant.
Wow.
So
But now they say it's not healthy. No.
it's better than starving.
Right, right,
And I just bought a bottle.
It's all relative.
right.
Palm
Palm oil is back.
The subsistence. It's prevented millions of people from starving to death from this
Incredible.
product.
Right, which is, it's an act of hope, right? That you can
So
challenge these kinds of.
our community that then sends our kids to college and gives them all these wonderful, that's who should be producing children.
Well, the farmers used to produce children because they needed workers.
Yeah. And now it's, the tractors have GPS in them
Yeah.
so that they
They don't
could
need 'em.
get the rows perfectly straight and,
Mhm. Yeah.
That's another interesting thing, that when you have the technology getting everything straight and everything fits into a box, there's a beauty lost.
oh, yeah, that whole
It is a
lifestyle.
creativity.
Yeah, that's like with ChatGPT and with AI.
Yeah.
The writer's strike, a lot of that is about like, are writers replaceable? It's like the human imagination, right? The AI can do a lot and it can help, but at the expense of human
What?
creativity and
We had an AI Haggadah this year that was dreadful.
really?
Oh my. We made my brother-in-law put it away, like, take out the red and yellow one. It was
Wow,
horrible.
that's really interesting.
I thought it would be cool. No.
There was somebody at the writer's strike had a poster that said, I'll have what she's eating, ChatGPT.
It's not like it's the scene in
Yes,
with Harry Met Sally with the.
yes.
I want.
Right, of course,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
But something that could, I don't know if technology could ever really capture the the human, the uniquely human element of, life. I don't know.
This, in your second source, when Miriam continued, additionally concerning Pharaoh the wicked is uncertain whether his decree will be fulfilled. My brother-in-law would tell this sort of joke story about this king who decreed that he wanted all the Jews in his kingdom to be executed. And he brings before him the rabbi of the community to tell him this. And the king has this dog, and the rabbi tells him, I can teach the dog to speak. He goes, you could teach my dog to speak. He goes, if you spare the Jews, I will teach your dog to speak, but I'll need a year in order to do this. And the king agrees. And then the rabbi goes back and explains to the community the arrangement he made. He goes, but can you really teach a dog to speak? He goes, well, we have a year. The dog could die. The king could die.
Buying time, yeah.
That is a Jewish attitude.
Right.
Well, but that's what she's saying here, isn't it? Additionally, concerning Pharaoh's wicked, it's uncertain whether his decree will be fulfilled.
Right.
And it is uncertain if his decree will not be fulfilled, because
But I think there's also a theology here, which is an interesting theology. I don't necessarily go with, but I think the rabbis here are saying, you are righteous, so what you want will happen.
Yeah.
Whereas Pharaoh is wicked, God is going to defeat the wicked. So you who are righteous, what you actually do is going to succeed. Pharaohs might not succeed because Pharaoh is wicked. So the question of, do the good always prosper? Do the wicked always suffer? That's what I have odds with, right? But I think that is the internal logic of that.
Also,
That's how-
the other men will follow your way of doing. or,
Right.
Your suggestion or your decree.
Right, they're gonna follow your lead, yeah. Right,
Okay, bye, everybody.
bye, have a good rest of the day, Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, but.
All right, I really enjoyed this, you guys.